put a trigger warning on trigger warnings.
I gotta take it on the other side.
That's right, it's The Other Side with Dan and DiRenzo here for the first time ever on YouTube Live as we take over the YouTube like old school pirate radio, Anthony. It's where we're given the green light to do our own thing for a little bit from time to time. So for the first time, we're going to do our thing here with The Other Side with Dan and DiRenzo. And a little bit about this show. The Other Side is the other side of the glass. Me and Anthony are both producers here at 1210 WPHT. I'm Dom Giordano's producer. He is Dawn's producer, Nick's producer.
Yeah, everyone's
video guy.
BetQL producer, all over the place.
Seems Dom's producer from time to time.
Yeah, I hop in.
But we thought we'd give our take on some things. And also the other side means a lot of things. I mean, here in Philadelphia, us conservatives, we are the other side of the coin.
That's true.
And then also we like to give some takes from the other side, that being liberal progressives. I don't think I classify myself as progressive in any way, but there are some viewpoints that I have that do lean a little bit more moderate liberal. Anthony, you shaked your head at the progressive.
Well, I mean, I guess at one time I did. Obviously, I don't think anymore I do. I try not to identify with either side of it because I think that's how people get manipulated. And we continue this current system of not talking about any of it, really.
So let's throw down right now. I mean, talking about not getting manipulated is kind of the point of this program, and I just said right there, I gave my political beliefs, but I guess, the idea of this show is to not share political beliefs and kind of give multiple stances and different takes on things. But Anthony, first up, I want to... So back a little bit about myself. I came from Howard Stern, then went to Atlantic Jersey Shore. But when I was at Stern before I came here to WPHT, there was a guy that was kind of famous around those parts by the name of Joey Boots. He lived with Eric the actor. No, that wasn't Eric the actor. That was Eric the midget for a little while. But high-pitched Eric he lived with. And he ran into a guy in Central Park one time that was doing something that you wouldn't expect someone to be doing in Central Park, and gave him a little crap. Take a watch, Anthony. You got that?
Yeah. And this was our favorite Tucker, who's been taking over the news somehow here today. But here we go. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
There it is.
How you doing?
Great.
I didn't know you could fish here.
What's that?
Huh?
What's that? What's that?
It's called a video camera.
Oh,
I didn't know you could fish here.
You can?
You can?
Yeah.
What are you fishing for?
Are you videotaping me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're in public, I can.
Well, I know you can.
Okay.
I'm not challenging your right. I just want to know why you
I
want.
find it interesting that you're fishing in Central Park.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely allowed.
Okay.
It's allowed in 3 ponds. It's allowed in the pond.
I've never seen anybody fish here before. I videotaped that, which I find interesting and unique about the city of New York.
Well, it's a good thing. Yeah, you can. You can go right on the Central Park website. So you can fish.
The thing about this whole thing, though, with Tucker is
I'm not
he really
challenging the
seems
fact
to have like a decent demeanor with the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel like every single time he is out in public and has been pressed in the public like that, it has not turned out well for him. He almost acts... I guess the only time is when we've seen him lately on the Full Send podcast. He seemed a little normal. Maybe that's also...
You're trying to create an image of relatability, though?
I don't know what that is.
All right, so we're talking about this. If you're not aware yet, Tucker Carlson is ousted over at Fox News. And Tucker, I really like Tucker. I really enjoyed his show. But a very controversial individual for both conservatives and obviously for both parties. But the guy, do you think he knew he was on his way out there and that's why he's trying to kind of clean his image a little bit? Or
I mean, after that Trump news came out, it seemed like he kind of had an idea that maybe things went a little bit too far. I didn't think he would be fired, obviously, and then the lawsuit with all of the voting machines and them calling out a specific company. Mm-hmm. I still didn't think he would be out, but with him being the number one guy, but now moving toward the 24 election and Fox News is pivoting from Tucker, it is definitely a shock, but I think at the same time, the network's trying to mitigate damage control at this point and trying to find a new angle and a new role.
So what is the new angle for Fox News?
I don't know. Who did they look at next? Did they look at a guy like Lawrence Jones? Do they go outside of the network?
Jesse Waters?
Yeah, they could be Waters. Yeah. Do they try to get someone from Daily Wire?
So I was telling Dom that the thing that really, I think, made Tucker relatable, and the love came from his smugness
Mm-hmm.
and the way he would bring on liberals, progressives, and essentially have them give their point of view and make those faces and then have an incredibly intelligent response to retort with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anyone on Fox News that has that same kind of, maybe Gutfeld, but Gutfeld. All right, let's take a detour real quick. Gutfeld show at night. Are you a fan of that?
I mean, I guess there's a need for it just because there isn't even anything that funny anymore.
Yeah.
Like things like Saturday Night Live aren't traditionally as funny as they once were.
No.
So I get it. And especially obviously everything has a political angle now. So it doesn't surprise me. But do I like Gutfeld? I mean, I don't love him. I still don't. I guess I understand a need for someone like him in a media market like this.
Though?
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
He's not funny to me.
Like a lot of his stuff is just so cringeworthy.
He doesn't seem like a comedian. I mean, he's still a political commentator, which
Yeah.
I guess he tries to act like
his
he's not a
jokes
little
seem like people like trying to write funny comments on Reddit, and he's just reading them back, and it just falls flat. I'm not a huge fan of Gutfeld. But Tucker being out, also today we learned that Don Lemon is no longer.
How much of a coincidence is that? Is that just?
I mean, it plays up to the rivalry, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess to me, it seems like all of this TV news continues to fall and fall. Young people aren't necessarily watching it. Even the older people, especially that were watching things like MSNBC, CNN, and I mean, Fox does better than the rest of them.
Yeah.
But it is something that is of note, and they need to figure out what's going on. The fact that it happened the same day is kind of weird. I think it is just a coincidence. But at the same time, could TV news be trying to make a pivot, especially before the elections? I mean, I think so. We also heard about that Charles Barkley program that CNN's going to be trying to do here. I think that'll be very interesting. He said, obviously...
So hold on. Let's take a pause real quick. This Charles Barkley program you threw at me the other day, and it was kind of like, what the hell's going on there? But is it a sports show? Is the guy doing like political commentary?
No, I mean, it's going to be politics. He said it won't necessarily be political, quote unquote, because he's trying to get away from the partisan things. And I mean, recently... He was even calling out people on the air and trying to call out cancel culture. So he's someone who tries to move away from that. I don't know.
Is he carrying the show, or is he just going to be a...
He's one of two anchors.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Almost over.
I'm not sure when that launches. They just started talking about that, so
Your thoughts on how that's going to turn out?
I don't know. I like Barkley. I think it could turn out well for them. Not that they're going to totally snag a new audience, but I would have to look. I wasn't even... I wasn't prepared to tell you that.
So real quick, we're on YouTube, youtube.com/@1210WPHT. Again, this is essentially pirate radio. We've taken over YouTube. We'll do this from time to time just to have a chat about politics, what goes on behind the glass on the other side, as you can see with the name, the clever name of the podcast. Thank you very much. But if you were in the chair, the Murdoch chair, and you had this decision to make a Fox News to either kind of stick with status quo and fill Tucker with another Tucker, or take it in a new direction, what are you doing, and which direction are you taking it in?
I mean, you would think they're trying to not change anything. They would want to keep the status quo. Yeah. What's the point for them? I don't think moderates aren't gravitating, I don't think, necessarily toward either TV news network.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
With those ratings.
Yeah,
do you think there's an opportunity here for ratings to increase? So if they brought, I just don't see who they can bring in that could do better than Tucker.
It is, but that's what they did say. That they said that about O'Reilly at the same time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's tomorrow at 12:30. O'Reilly's joining Dom Giordano, but it's kind of throwing out the idea of O'Reilly coming back to replace him. But Jesse Waters was also a name said today. I mean, I like Jesse. I think he's great. I don't know if he can do the Tucker role.
Yeah, I mean, I think people do like him. At the same time, I don't really know where they go from here, because anyone that they do get, I think they are going to have this certain expectation. But maybe even people who did watch Fox, I've heard people not necessarily like Tucker as their number one guy when it comes to Fox. So I don't know how many people will be heartbroken. Obviously, he has loyal fans. And I mean, what do you think he does next? I think he goes to his own YouTube, probably.
Okay, so let me run this by you. We got a caller today and a tweet who suggested that Tucker's happy with this move because now it gives him the free time to be Trump's vice president.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. There's no way. There's no way that that's happening.
So if that were to happen, though, I mean, that would be fascinating. Kamala versus Tucker in the VP debates. Like, I want this to happen. I'm fighting for this to happen.
I can't imagine that.
It would be incredible. Tim Scott's the other guy that Dom threw out for that. But
I didn't even think about that. Are people saying that on Twitter?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
political.
crazy.
Daily Wire might be an ending up spot I've read about. Recently, they had that offer out there to Crowder, $50 million for 4 years. But that's $12.5 per year, whereas Tucker over at Fox is making $35.
Yeah, and I mean, I think someone was bringing up today, will he go to Newsmax? Will he do something like that? I don't think so. They can't afford him, and I think he'll have his own audience that would be ample enough no matter what he does next. So, like it or not, like political commentary where it is now or not, he'll have some sort of role, whether that's him jumping to the Daily Wire, doing his own thing like it. I see him probably doing his own thing.
I don't want to encourage this because I think it's absolutely horrible idea, but this is the prime opportunity for Trump to get involved launching a network with Tucker Carlson as the like the Trump News Network with Tucker Carlson. You don't think it'd work?
I mean, everyone thought Trump was going to get into media after what happened with the election and all that. Everyone was like, oh, he'll be done being president, but he'll try to have a media network. That obviously hasn't happened because he's trying to be president again. But
yeah, do you think media needs to lessen their bias? Because we have over on Fox News, it's obviously biased to the right, CNN, MSNBC biased to the left, and it's, I think, largely contributed to the division that we see in the country just from individual to individual.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the status quo of the news media and the stoking the flames of the left versus the right. And I know these past 2 years are crazy, no matter what you think. And politicians have said insane things. Places were locked down. A lot of crazy stuff happened. So I understand people being frustrated, but it's just the status quo of everything since then, I think, has put a new focus on it, though. Everything. I mean, look at the young voter base. Would this all have been here without? I mean, obviously, we'll get into other issues later, but I think COVID, obviously, and all of this kind of, and news media and the environment that we've all been around has kind of played a huge role in that. So hopefully moving forward, we can demand, I guess, a more equal one, but it doesn't matter at the same time. I think there is a demand, no matter if you like it or not, because I'm someone who complains about the news media, but
I mean, going back to the 30s, you had the Fairness Doctrine, which was good until late 60s. Vietnam kind of changed things. Yeah. Reagan then essentially shut it down. And what the Fairness Doctrine did, it required two things out of any kind of broadcast station. It was, one, you needed to have regular issues programs. You needed to cover everything. If there was protests and LGBT protests, everyone, if you were claiming to be a news station, you had to cover that. The second one would be you have to provide not equal, but enough of a representation where it's passable for both sides. And that was essentially obliterated in the mid-'80s, which then led to the rise of TV news. Dan Rather was a huge turning point in that. So you have the Fairness Doctrine out there, and the argument against that, though, is that is governmental overreach, that you have the First Amendment, which is obviously the protection of free speech, that really gives governmental control as to what a radio station or TV station can and cannot say. Yes. So myself, I'm a little bit conflicted because with you, I believe that this division of media has largely stewed what we're seeing here. But I can't justify to myself an infringement on the First Amendment from the sense of, do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to necessarily tell the networks what to do.
Yeah.
I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't want to regulate.
But how do you require them to do what's needed of them without requiring it?
I think you create a different structure. These networks aren't necessarily held to a certain standard. They're all just, at least in the traditional cable model, have been paid to just put out content. And it doesn't matter, good, bad, or indifferent, just put out the content. And they do have sponsors, but they're more beholden to these cable companies that pay them tons and tons of money to give their subscribers content, whether that's Fox, CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, all of these networks. Their main goal is to have those big deals and those big contracts. And I guess at the end of the day, maybe you regulate things like super PACs more. Maybe you regulate things like giant political arms that influence networks or help then start networks. I know people always have issues with families like the Murdochs, but I feel like you could say that about any of these media conglomerates at times. So it's you would have to, I think be careful because you're right. I don't want to overregulate, but at the same time, I think it almost comes down to big money in that sense. And you know, these networks then protect the interests of other things.
And just a broad question. Do you think 10, 15 years down the road, Fox News is still going to be a powerhouse as it is?
I think it will be because the people will still be there.
Okay.
Their demographic isn't necessarily that old. They're not going to disappear.
Yeah.
But I also think cable TV might change totally. It might be direct to consumer. It might just be Fox News right to them instead of just through a cable channel or something of that nature.
So essentially just a streaming.
Yeah. I mean, everything's moving. They have that Fox Nation thing already, so everything's moving that direction. So
that kind of further. I don't want a fairness doctrine then, because as it becomes more, there's more and more sources. I mean, as Fox News loses power and others gain power, I don't know how you're going to control it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you there.
I don't want to become too much like China, and that's where we're going to go next. Yeah.
But then do you look at, we've had so little regulation that now look how much power these companies have. But then on the other side, the other side with China,
like the controls kind of shifted over to the corporate overlords. So but at the same time, I had this discussion because, all right, let's Belmar has a place called Curaleaf, legal marijuana, recreational marijuana, and there is an issue that we discovered last week. You sent me a article that said the recreational marijuana is up for their license was in jeopardy because they had failed to report a zoning move, and essentially Belmar was pissed that they were going to take the manufacturing facility and move it over to Berlin, I think, or Winslow, one of those South Jersey towns. And me and my friend, who's very much against corporatization and Curaleaf and just the big weed industry, was laughing like, ha ha ha, good for them. But over here, I was saying to myself, I'm for Curaleaf. I'm against the governmental regulation, and I kind of see it similar to just life in general. I think my prioritization is, as much as I hate big corporate, I want corporate to have freedom over government, and the idea of governmental overreach, overreaching at corporate is kind of why I'm not with the left at this point.
Yeah. No, and I think that's, I don't like big government. Everyone talks about big government. Big government's already here, and there's a ton of problems with it. I think that's the main issue. Whether that, and I think both sides kind of allude to a bigger government than we want to believe, no matter what, because they want more and more power. And I think COVID proved that. So I would hope that we trend in a different direction, but it really seems like all of these companies have so much power, and they have so much influence that, to your point, even if it is government regulation or not, there's a lot of things that barrier people from getting to that point, whether it's in the private sector or in politics.
Our country's really screwed up how it is.
I mean, there's just
so
fundamental.
Hard to be a small business owner, and yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say there's so many fundamental issues too. Whether it's and we've seen this just on a political level. I always bring this up now. Look at things like we see the executive orders becoming a normal thing in politics. Yeah. That shouldn't be a normal thing. We have 3 branches of government set up for a specific reason, so they all work together. Now we've gotten to a point where whether it's the right or the left, whoever's in office, they create executive orders, they build up something. Then when the other side gets in, they tear it down, they create their own executive orders, and now we're going to continue to...
isn't the root of the word dictatorship to dictate?
And that's
what's happening.
Exactly. We have to work together, and that's... I know it's hard to hear, and we have to, but we just have to. It's just like there was recent drama. Clay Travis was on with Stephen A. Smith on his Odyssey podcast called No Mercy, and there was a ton of drama around that, saying that, oh, you shouldn't stoke the flames of this, you shouldn't even talk to people like Clay, and he was like, listen, we have to talk to people we all disagree with. But I think that's the core message of things that a lot of people don't get anymore, is why aren't we talking to people? I mean, there are families that are just straight up torn apart now. And it's, I mean, it's obviously not ideal, but we have to be able to have these discussions. I know they're hard discussions, but people are getting so emotionally tied on either end, and it's, getting to a point where people are just, whether it's wanting to see some sort of extreme take on one end or the other, or even the state of the news cycle, like we were mentioning earlier. I think it just creates the status quo that we all complain about day to day.
I think it's divide and conquer. Like Dom always makes fun of me for being a conspiracy theorist on air, but I am to a degree where I believe that there is a cabal of elites that want to divide the masses in order to control.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
I don't disagree. I think there is. There has to be. Look at what happened in 2016 with Bernie and Hillary. Like, there has to be. I know that's in a party, so that's different. There's not necessarily this giant arm of structure, but there's something to the party that obviously didn't want someone like Bernie. And I know Bernie, I'm not trying to say Bernie was some savior, but it's funny because I guess he was a lifelong politician, but at the same time, I guess they thought he was a threat to the establishment. And I guess Trump was similar, but even more of that to an extent. So it's interesting to make those points because I do think there's gatekeeping. And and on the other side, Trump too, the Republicans didn't really want to see him waltz right in. They were mad that he wasn't a lifelong politician. You didn't belong in the club, but he just walked in and showed them up immediately. So I think you're right. They don't want you to just immediately earn your stripes and walk in. There is this gate, there is this barrier, and it's hard to get that and get that influence and walk into those worlds.
Yeah, but the establishment, it's drain the swamp ideology, and I really think that a lot of this relentless, just in your face, we don't even care that you notice this anymore, is just a bite back at Trump, who said he wanted to drain the swamp.
And I guess to an extent he drained his own swamp too. When he was at his own administration, dude, firing people left and right.
Also, it kind of goes in line with just a couple years earlier. You had the Occupy Wall Street movement. 2008, it was people camping out outside Wall Street talking about the 1%, and I think the 1% felt threatened, and now the 1% thought, what better way to get the heat off of us than divide the other 99%.
Yes, exactly.
And ever since that point, that precipice, I really think there's been a turn. And I think Trump saw that happening kind of behind the scenes. And that's where he seized on the I'm going to drain the swamp kind of ideology, because he said the 1% was that swamp and he latched onto that. But I really think it started with the Occupy Wall Street and the, in your face 1% is the issue.
Can he even still get away with that? Can he still get away with talking about how he's not a politician, an anti-establishment, and draining a swamp?
I think out of anyone running right now, I think he has the best shot as to fighting back against it.
Yeah.
It's becoming a, least or worst devil's choice. Is that what it's called? A devil's choice?
Yeah.
I'm not pro-Trump. I voted for the guy last time. I like the guy, but I think he's the only. Do you think DeSantis takes on? Well, the way he did COVID. He did it great. Trump has the more in your face, call it out. DeSantis said, "I'm just going to do it my own damn way, and I'll prove to you that I can do it better."
Do you think there's any merit to the recent RFK arguments against Trump and how he's saying that Trump allowed the lockdowns? He doesn't care if Fauci and the bureaucrats were involved. It's still Trump's fault. Do you think there's any merit to that?
I don't know. It's tough. It really sends me for a loop, because even delving further in the conspiratorial hole, which I guess we can do here on the other side. I guess it's kind of the point of the show. Yeah. Kind of blows up the theory that Trump's not in with the World Economic Forum and the quote Great Reset and everything that we allegedly know about what happened with the Wuhan lab leak. And if Trump did essentially what Kennedy's saying, then Trump's an enabler to what he allegedly knew. No. Yeah.
No, I definitely think that. And
so, in other words, I don't believe Kennedy. I would believe Trump over Kennedy in that case. Yeah.
No, I could see that. And obviously, it's easy for you to say when you're an outsider and you're walking right in and you're trying to make headlines, which I guess he is actually saying at this point. So I don't know. He's up against a big test, but if Biden runs again, and that's the rumor now, and he finish the job is the slogan. I don't know how that's gonna go.
Well, I want to check real quick just our tech because we have Fred Flintstone on here saying this is new. Does Levin not let you stream on YouTube? Is this a permanent show? Oh, I think he's asking if we're a permanent show. No, we're not going to be here every day.
No.
Kind of.
Yeah, this is a podcast.
Maybe
yeah.
weekly.
Yeah.
We're just recording a podcast right now, but he says more broken mics. Are we? Is something going on with our microphones?
I think we're good to go.
I don't know. This is coming from Fred Flintstone, so I couldn't expect this guy to know much about microphones. He's listening to two birds plugged into his ears. Stompy says the boys cut loose, and then Stompy says, "Nah, fix your headset made of rocks, mate." My kind of guy. So China's back in the news. New York Post has been very active talking about these Chinese U.S. police stations that target anyone comparing Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh. Just one of many things.
What? What?
I think Piglet might have something to say about that. Do you have that clip?
Let me hold on. Let me see here.
Yeah, so South Park talked about this in the past, and sorry, we're still getting kind of with the technology, trying to play these clips and all. Oh, here we go. Yeah, no.
Piglet. Oh, here we go.
Here
we go.
You got it.
Piglet. Let's go.
So this is why.
Some people said Pooh looked like the Chinese president, so we're illegal in China now.
Yeah, so Piglet's right there. Essentially, they're saying that Xi looks like Winnie the Pooh, and because of this, unapproved topics that include the discussion of the overthrow of CCP's control and Winnie the Pooh, police stations set up in the United States are essentially sending out social media trolls to harass and target individuals who are saying these things online on social, and then even going to the far as to threaten families back stateside in China that if they speak out against the Xi reign, that their family can be held accountable back in China. It's nuts. So a couple questions here. Who the hell allowed them to open up freaking police stations here in the US?
Yeah, I mean, this continues to come out, and I don't know what is really going on. Has this been something that has gone on throughout the Trump administration and since COVID?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's been going on for a long, long time.
Yeah, and why does this... I don't know. This is something that I also brought up. I was speaking with people recently trying to talk about the relations with U.S. and China, and I mean, I think we all want them to be decent. Nobody wants them to be bad, the relations with China, but having the spy balloon that goes over and gets information around places like our nuclear codes.
We forgot about that, huh?
Well,
I forgot about that,
yeah,
man.
But
I remember Balloon Boy more than I remember the China balloon at this point.
It's true, but then there's that, and then now China continually... I mean, there are all of these rumors with what they want to do further and how the communications between both countries continues to
So what are you
dissipate.
afraid of with China?
I mean, I'm not afraid of TikTok. I'll tell you that.
We'll get into that, baby.
Yeah,
Let's get into that.
Yeah.
So TikTok, I think, is an absolute threat to our national security. I think it's a threat to the future of American culture, to American society. I think it is going to be the downfall of our society. And it may sound sarcastic in me saying that, but no, I completely 100% believe that all to be true.
I don't know. I get the concern, and I understand that there are obvious things that get people riled up, especially parents here, with the content that's on TikTok and what their kids could see. But I think at the same time, when you look at an app like TikTok and then you look at an app like Instagram, you look up things like what's going on in France and the French Revolution lately with all the stuff going on, and they're currently having social justice and things like that going on. There's way more content of that on TikTok than there is on a thing like Instagram or even Twitter. So I don't know. I think it's interesting in that sense.
But
and what they censor.
Is that not maybe orchestrated to show that more so?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it just seems in a sense less moderated, but at the same time, you're right. They're collecting more data, and who knows what they're doing in the end with all of it. But I do think TikTok is different in that sense of all the other platforms seem to be less and less.
Yeah.
They're more curated to the advertiser and things of that nature now, which I think that's how all these apps are getting ruined, and everyone's getting fed up, and they're just data curating and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So my problem with TikTok is I think what you're saying is valid. If we're talking about current TikTok, I really think it's valid. But my big concern with TikTok is You ever see The Americans TV show on FX?
Yes.
How essentially they're like Russian agents who utter a certain word and they just automatically snap into action and it goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I think TickTok said I think it's a Trojan horse. I think it's a Chinese Trojan horse with Chinese governments involved in, and there are multiple. Douyin is the Chinese equivalent of TikTok. I'll do it instead of telling the click. But as you know, I've talked about this before. TikTok it shows teenagers sex. Well, it sounds so corny in saying that.
Yeah.
But
you sound like Dom.
I sound like Dom. They say they sell them bad crap, bad shit, and then you look over. But the Douyin, what they show their citizens in China are good things, positivity, and
it's true. I don't disagree there.
I just think if you have a governmental control that's in the pockets of every American, essentially influencing the way they think, and they want to wage a psychological war, a war of words, they can easily flip that switch, and TikTok is going to transform. Oh God, it sounds so horrible when I say this out loud. But it's going to transform individuals into pro-Chinese state supporters.
I mean, I understand the concern, and especially getting people. But to me, when I look at it as myself, I'm almost more concerned. What does Facebook have on me? What does Twitter have on me? What is all the what are the US?
Why is that more concerned? I mean,
well, it was proven with the Twitter files that they had the U.S. government. The U.S. government had direct involvement with Twitter, and I understand now. I guess Elon knows it, but
the Chinese government has direct involvement with TikTok. Like,
I mean,
would you not rather have?
I don't care if the Chinese government knows what kind of memes I like. That's to me. That's just me being selfish.
That's not my point with the fear, though. The fear of TikTok is not you're sharing memes. It's the influence. Like okay.
I don't care. I don't really care if they know what kind of things I'm into. I guess when they're data mining me.
I don't think transgenderism would be a trend, which I believe it to be. I don't think transgendering would be a trend if it wasn't pushed heavily on TikTok. And a lot of what we're seeing that is divisive, a lot of what we're seeing solely what we knew as society growing up, I think is pushed by the Chinese on TikTok to essentially debase Western civilization and culture.
I just don't agree with that.
No?
I think it really comes down
to subversion.
You think so?
Yeah. Like I think they're trying to subvert the masses, and right now it's very slight and subtle, so people don't pick up on it. But if they're the ones that are, the Geppetto to TikTok being the Pinocchio, they can make it dance however the hell they want to make it dance. And
I mean, it is a concern. We already were beholden to China for everything else, and now if that comes down to social media too.
Let's say China invades Taiwan.
Which, I mean, that seems inevitable.
Okay. And TikTok's algorithm pushes the ideology that China is right and invading Taiwan. And then it transforms over half the country, more than half the country, into being Chinese sympathizers for the invasion into Taiwan, while our government is trying to defend Taiwan and the freedom of Taiwan, which I think we can agree on, that Taiwan needs to be, a sovereign country. So if the United States government is fighting against a government that now has the control of the minds of the citizens of that government to sympathize with them, you don't think that poses a huge risk to national security?
I guess so, but I think you could say the same thing about any sort of social media and the influence in that sense. But I don't know if it necessarily would totally be that way, because they would do it subtly, but I guess that's the scary part about it. Because it would be subtle. It would probably be curated to every single person. At that.
Like, don't you ever sit back and just look at our current society of 2023 and say, what the F?
Well, that's for
And
sure,
don't you ever wonder what the hell's causing it?
I think it's partially that, but I think it's a lot of these arms and this dark money that leads everything. I think, and you mentioned earlier the transgender point. I don't really think it's because people on TikTok are transgender. I think really stuff like that comes down to all the money behind political messaging and trying to make people seem like bigots. I think most young people are trying to totally be understanding of all those things, no matter what it is, but they could be confused, and even asking questions now, I feel kind of intimidated because I don't want to be called a bigot. And I think it's this whole mind game, and that's why it's such a good political football where they could call everyone a bigot and you have to be accepting of everything. I think it goes back to if you ever saw the South Park episode of being a transphobe with the Special Olympics. It's like it's exactly how it's all.
Stan's no, it's not Stan's dad. It's Kyle's dad turns himself into a dolphin.
Yes. But it's. I mean, this is where we've gone down this road, and I think those are also compliments to it, though. I think what you're saying is true. There is validity in whatever social media it is playing a role in that. So, because then people.
But you talk about the bigotry and the claims of racism. Again, if there's a enemy country trying to subvert and there are racial dynamics at play, racial rife throughout a country, would it not benefit the enemy country to push the more divisive ideologies through their algorithm rather than the more together, unity type?
Well, it seems like they are putting more and more divisive. I mean, that's been the trend. So you're right. So I don't know. But at the same time,
that's where you say U.S. versus China. I got to say again, back to my governmental control. I'm against either country controlling it. But if there's one country versus the other that has a hand in the company, I'm choosing U.S. 10 out of 10 times.
I'm still totally against the Patriot Act and all of that.
The Protect Act?
Or the Protect Act, yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's the Patriot Act on steroids.
Yeah, it's kind of fallen under. I have it here somewhere.
It's the worst idea that's ever been created.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. I'm against it as well.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Like the fact that you can go as deep as essentially hacking at someone's modem to see their internet traffic, which this allows.
We don't need that.
I
don't need that.
No.
Stop it.
Write something as simple as,
my God,
let's not support and push companies controlled by political enemies or adversaries.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't think it's. I think this was essentially one kind of issue put into a bigger bill in hopes that the government could seize more control. And luckily, I think the idea is very much against it. Trans issue?
Yeah,
where do you stand on it?
I mean, I'm totally accepting of every and all trans people. I guess here's my gripe. Here's my gripe with conservatives and the
any and all trans people. Does that include people 18 and under?
Okay, I guess not any and all.
Okay.
I'm totally for parents being involved, and if someone wants to dress like a boy or a girl until they're 18, I'm all for that. Like, that's fine. I think the kids have done that, even when we grew up, and we didn't even really talk about it. I feel like it was almost ignored. But now,
speak for yourself.
Well, but no, you know what I mean, though.
I'm here sitting with a flamingo shirt on.
Yeah, exactly. But I think at the same time, I'm sick of conservatives and liberals in this conversation because they're just trying to always scream at each other. But regardless, I think specifically my gripe with conservatives is, if you're going to care about freedom, if you're 18 and older and you're a transgender person, first of all, I think it's hard for you to deal with. Nobody really, that's a really hard thing to deal with. It's a difficult life decision, and you have to have people in your life accept you then for who you really are, and it's a long path. Mm-hmm. And I know that people, I'm sure, find themselves, and we've had callers even in Connecticut.
How about you must take me seriously, though? You okay with that?
What do you mean by that?
Rachel Levine.
Well,
so she's sitting in office, and I think she's a very mockable individual, but no one's going to touch mocking her with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, but she was an adult, so I'm fine with that. If you're an adult and you're a trans person, and I get it, we might be able to poke fun at it a little bit because that's what people do with the narratives, but
I mean, that's kind of where I'm going, though. Like, my issue with trans, when you're saying, 18 plus, if someone wants to make that decision, then go the hell right ahead. If they want to live their life that way, go the right hell ahead. But if you're going to live your life that way, I think I should be able to mock you.
I don't know I think that's where I think that's
I think I should
be
able to make jokes.
I just think that's too far.
Why?
If people want to be accepted.
Why is making jokes too far?
I mean, we should be able to make jokes about everyone. That's in my ideal world. Like, yes. I grew up in a family where
that's where I stand, and that includes transgender individuals.
But I think still, like, we shouldn't demean them, I guess. But I don't think you're really
like, what's the line of demeaning, though? Are we getting into hot water here? Like, I just, you have a guy dressing like a girl and talking like a girl and saying, you gotta Like, I think just at the root of it is it's not what I knew as normal growing up. And when you have stuff that isn't normal, sometimes the way to cope with that is by joking about it. I mean, Howard Stern, who I grew up on, South Park, would make episodes about transgendered. It's why is...
Well, I guess my whole thing that I'm really just trying to say is, if we're going to care about freedom, we should care about freedom. If you're 18 or over and you choose that lifestyle, we shouldn't demean or make fun of anyone. They're probably having a difficult life as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we should try to be as accepting as possible for everyone. I think that's one thing I could get with. I don't even think they are the ones perpetuating the craziness around the conversation. That's like the arms of the conversation, the dark money and all that. And politics, just in super PACs, all getting involved.
Would you say TikTok?
I guess so. A little bit. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So with the trans thing, I'm with you. 18 plus. If you have a adult that wants to be a female or adult female that wants to be a male, then go the hell right ahead. I just have an issue with the couple things. One being gender reassignment under the age of 18. I don't think that should be legal. I think it is just as illegal if your child came up to you at 14 years old and said, "Dad, I'm sick of living with my left arm. Can I chop it off?" If you were a parent and said, "Here, kid, take this axe. Let's go chop off your arm." What's the legal repercussions for that?
Yeah, and I mean, the kid could totally regret it. And I think that's my whole point with, if you're 18 and that's your lifestyle and that's who you think you are, then, who are we to say not, as long as that's who they really think they are. Like that has to be a final life decision. This isn't just, one day, oh, I'm just doing this today. Like, no, this is real life. This is a really long life decision. Figuring out who yourself is hard enough. And I think we're confusing kids even more. And, I still do think, whether you're a young person and you're not sure about what's going on and you think you might identify as the other gender, it's not an easy thing. I don't think anyone necessarily asks for it. But I think, to your point, maybe these social media and these people talking about it and the constant perpetuating of all of this and making it so political and so identity politics for kids even, I think that's kind of where the issues are lying in all of this right now. And the kids are so affected in such a negative way.
It's got to be confusing to be a kid right now.
And the parents are just fighting with the teachers and the unions constantly. And
Yeah.
It's just like, what do you even think? And you're sitting there just trying to have fun and go to like recess and have lunch. And there's people just screaming about politics on the left or the right. People are sending in their kids wearing like t-shirts of, let's go Brandon or whatever it may be. And that's, I think, where we're getting lost. Like, how are we at a point where that's like, if some people are just like political footballs all over the place, and I don't know. We have to get to a point where it's not that combative. And it is good that people are getting involved with school boards, because especially parents on the right, we've heard it. We've had people call in. A lot of the times they've just been ignored ever since COVID. And they get these time limits. They're on for 1 minute, cut off. That's it. I mean, I've seen it. We've seen it all over the country.
We've had PACs pop up because of it, super PACs.
Yeah. So, I think that's a huge, huge issue. And, I think your TikTok point is funny too. It's kind of true. So
the conservative stance, though, like in Florida with this bill, though, like there are books in the library that these same parents that you talk about, who have gone on to found groups and all, like Clarice Schillinger, Alana Fishbein, a couple others, they've brought me some crazy books that are in libraries. I sent you the one. I'm not gonna. You know what? Yeah, why not? Why don't I read a little bit of this passage? So My Body is Growing, a guide for children ages 4 to 8. If you got kids listening, tune away. I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit, because this is a children's book for kids 4 to 8. This is like one of the books that you see in the school. Quote, Marco is a great guy, Toby thinks. When he grows up, he wants to drive as nice of a motor scooter as Marco. Secretly, he imagines himself racing around with Serafina riding on the back. Sabrina and Marco kiss often, all the time, thinks Toby, and they also sleep together. Sabrina told Toby so. They snuggle together for a long time. They kiss each other all over their bodies, behind the ears, on the neck, or the chest and stomach. even on the bum and between the legs. Sabrina's. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. Just
isn't this like
there are words used that are moist, warm, pushes. I'm gonna skip forward though, and then it goes, quote, "That's how you get babies," Toby said. Quote, "You guessed it, little brother," Sabrina said, tousing Toby's hair.
Oh my God.
So this is a book called My Body is Growing. This has been in school. So this whole approach down in Florida of banning books, I 100% agree with it. But again, similar to this Protect Act, whatever it's called, it's way too hasty in the approach. And I think the liberals are able to exploit it for good reason because it's taken, books that have a long time been on shelves for good reason off the shelves. But this whole, sexualizing stuff to children, transgenderism, these books, do you know of any idea where the hell it comes from?
I mean, that stuff is crazy. If that's a book in your child's library, that's just absolutely nuts. And obviously nobody really wants that. But that's where the politics is going now. And that has to be just one parent trying to get something crazy out there. I don't even know why. Maybe just to make I really don't even know why. I feel like nobody really wants their kids to see that. Yeah. It's just, it continues to baffle me more and more with that. That's just, that kind of writing but isn't this what we went through? It's funny, growing up, isn't this kind of what we went through, people in our generation? This is what they talked about with the Catholic school priests and the teachers. And that's well, not the teachers as much, it's more the priests, but either way, that entire system. And, I'm not trying to bash Catholics, but that was a whole...
You watch yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up Catholic. I'm a Catholic, so... But it's just funny that used to be the stereotype for, Catholics, and now look at it, it's totally flipped to Democrats and transgenderism. It's all really the same thing. Like, why do, in certain senses, no matter where people align, whether it's politics or religion, why in some cases is it okay to almost exploit this children's stuff, or on the other hand, it's not?
My argument against what you just said, though, is I would say because one is really rooted in a background of religion where the other is rooted in sexuality and gender.
Yeah.
So that's just where I would differ with you there. 734 HR, a bill passed 219 to 203. This was restricting transgender students from playing on women's sports teams.
And Riley Gaines was supporting that, and all these other women swimmers. And I mean, I think it's still crazy to see these women actually speaking out. It took a while, but now there's a few of them that continue to be activists for this. And
dude, I'd be pissed.
I mean, women's rights groups are flipping from being fully Democrat all the time to now
we had someone
supporting bills like this.
We had a radical feminist who actually supported this bill, breaking with the Biden administration just because it really trounces on women's sports.
I mean, why can't there be a third league?
Yes.
Isn't that where we should go with this? I'm not trying to say they should be not included. I think this is like, why do we have to be so combative with the argument? Let's make another league. Yeah. Put them in that league. We did the same thing to women. The women could have, they probably did complain for years, but it is what it is. And then you go from there. Yeah. So
I think that's where we're trending towards. I don't know. Did you see the weightlifter Dale Shepherd of New Zealand by chance?
I did not see him.
Dale Shepherd was once dubbed New Zealand's strongest man. And last week he participated in the women's powerlifting competition, or wanted to. He signed up for it. He exploited the same gender policy as a recent record winner but they wouldn't let him in. So he said to maintain equity and preserve women's sports, transgendered and biological women must have their own separate classes, or eventually all women's sports will be overtaken by biological men who now identify as a woman. Because of his request to join in the tournament, the New Zealand powerlifting updated its website to say it's necessary to ensure that transgendered athletes are not excluded from the opportunity to participate in sporting competition or celebrate in the spirit of competitive inclusiveness. But they said you have to declare your identity as female. You have to have that declaration for sporting purposes for a minimum of 4 years. You must undergo hormone treatment for at least 12 months prior to their first competition. And transgender people who are not taking hormones are not disbarred, but will go under complete confidential review. So all those kind of still just create a separate league. This Anders guy also went Silverberg. Avi Silverberg, he's the head coach for Team Canada, temporarily identified as a female on March 25th, demolished a women's record set by a male trans at the Heroes Classics while the male trans was sitting right in front of him, so he can prove that he could do it, doing it over 100 pounds more.
I heard about that, yeah. And then walking away, right?
Yeah, essentially just saying, like, look, if we allow this to happen, women's records are going to be obliterated. They're going to be held by men, and women's sports are no longer going to matter. And I think he makes a great point.
It is a good point, and you can't, I mean, these women work their entire careers and their entire high school careers for this, and they need to be able to at least have a chance at it. And if they don't, we're going to continue to go down this rabbit hole where we argue and act like it isn't really an argument. Let's just make a third league. I just really, like you said, it's the logical way to go, and we could actually make progress on moving forward. So hopefully, I mean, we need to just stop having this screaming song and dance and acting like we hate each other when it comes up.
Let's love
as a society.
Let's love a little. Let's move on to sports while we're talking trans and sports.
Woo.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers officially signs with the Jets.
Yes. My God, finally. Nobody thought it would happen. He went to his black hole cave and reevaluated his life. Probably. Apparently, he likes Robert F. Kennedy. He was putting out his support for RFK.
Does not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, of course. Anti-vaccine guy likes RFK. So, Aaron Rodgers in New York.
How's it going to go?
They have a good roster, man. They look pretty...
on field, it's going to go well, I think.
Their roster is pretty damn good. And New York having Aaron Rodgers, everyone's saying he's following in the footsteps of Brett Favre, which is funny.
He really is.
But I do think he's going to have better results there. I really do.
All right, that's on field, though. Like, the guy, as much as I enjoy the entertainment that he provides, especially on the Pat McAfee show.
Yes.
He is kind of a diva with the media.
Yeah, but I also respect how he's honest. There's a lot in the media that they just go out, they do their song and dance.
Is that going to bode well in a New York market?
I think so.
Yeah?
I mean, if he's honest, they'll call him out for him. They'll not call him. I think that works in Philly. Look at our players who are honest with us. I mean, look at who was it last season? Was that Boehm who said, I effing hate this place when he was playing and then...
Yeah.
But I just think
that's a good point.
I just think Northeast fans, when players are vocal and honest, no matter what their opinion is, I think the players.
And why does Darius Slay get a bad rap?
That's a good point. I mean, I like Slay. Yeah. I don't think he deserves anything.
I think there's something to be said about outsiders, like Ilya Brizgalov, also super honest.
Well, you have to be mad. Yeah
exactly. But it's super despised here in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean. He was another one that he was out. He was just a trip, but the Flyers they put too much on him, I think. Yeah. And the pressure, they weren't good enough yet when they had him and everyone acted like he was the piece.
You think Rodgers is not going to fold under pressure?
I don't know, man. I mean, everyone talks up the Bills, but I think the Bills last year, they kind of came up short. Who knows? Obviously, they should bounce back, but you never know. The Patriots, I don't know what to expect. I don't think they'll be that good, but I'm sure they'll compete just somehow because Belichick finds a way. And the Dolphins, I mean, they looked great last year before Tua got hurt. I guess it depends if Tua gets seriously hurt again. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the Jets have a great roster. They now have Aaron Rodgers. Their defense has been good. Their offense really has great running backs. Their receivers are good. They're probably going to at least bolster receiver and running back a little bit, give them some help, which Rodgers never got help in Green Bay.
Breakout season for Garrett?
I mean, it could be. And their defense just continues to, impress people. Last year, I think they were very that's just their strong suit. The New York Jets, they're always good. That is something that's just been their expertise for God knows how long. I mean, when they had Revis and Rex Ryan. So even now, Salah, a defensive-minded coach, I think they have some potential. And I know a lot of people took them a while ago with some futures bets to win the division. We'll see if that pays out.
Bet now. Yeah.
We'll see if that pays out. I do think they'll be a very competitive team.
Do you know what the odds were? Just when the news was starting, the rumors for Rodgers going to the Jets?
I mean, this has been going on for months, ever since when he announced on McAfee that day. I mean, they've really shot down. But even,
there were grumbles before him even going to McAfee and saying it.
Yeah. I mean, the market was moving steadily since.
Are you talking about when he went on McAfee to say why it hasn't happened, essentially? Because there was this time where the Green Bay, essentially just wouldn't make any moves on the compensation. And that's why there wasn't a trade. And Rodgers came out onto McAfee and said it there.
Yeah, I mean, you could still bet on it. The odds are not nearly what they were. I don't know if I would bet on the Jets just totally to win it all like that, or for Rodgers to be MVP. I think they will have a really good season, but it really will be a team effort at the end of the day. And, you know, a lot of quarterback movement. Obviously, Jalen Hurts.
Well, hold on. Before we go there, you watched Ted Lasso, right?
Yes, sir.
You know Zava from this season? You know
Yes,
how once they saw any kind of negativity in the locker or negativity on the field, he was like Zava out and just left. I think that's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like once he gets any turbulence, it's gonna be all right.
He's gonna have like
Rodgers out.
incense in the locker room too, just walking around with like sage going around. Yeah.
All right. So
I could
Jalen
totally see
Hurts,
that.
Eagles, huge contract. I mean, highest paid player, first no trade clause in Eagles history.
I mean, what can you complain about? He earned all that money, and everyone that's complaining about the cap's not real. Like the cap, it doesn't exist.
Well,
they move
it
things
exists
around.
if you don't have Howie Roseman as a GM. Like not every GM in the NFL is as smart as Howie. I mean, there are GMs who don't know how to use computers still. So well, you got to think about it. Howie's a mathematician, so that's I think what gives us a competitive advantage right now.
This is true. I mean, Howie continues to, it seems like, fleece everyone. There's rumors about Derrick Henry now. They've continued to impress. They're getting maybe Buda Baker. I mean, look at the players throughout the years.
Saw that Derrick Henry rumor today.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the players historically that Howie has got. He's pretty much with the draft even, since everyone wanted to talk down Hurts, going even that back with Wentz when we had him. Nobody wanted him. And now look where we're at. We're giving him the biggest contract. So I think a lot of people are concerned about paying all of our players. Obviously, it's going to come up. I think they're going to have to move money around here and there, as always. What if someone like Devonta Smith needs to be re-signed?
Would you consider taking a pay cut? Me and Dom talk about this, and it always turns into these. Dom has this take he loves rolling with, that the salary cap is socialist, and But my whole thing, if I was Jalen Hurts and I was trying to make the point on air, I'd consider taking $10 million, $15 million less. If I could get it written in a clause that said the other $15 million that would have went to my contract goes to an offensive weapon. That way, 5 years down the road, I have an opportunity to success, because I don't know. I don't know if I completely fully agree with your take about the salary cap, because I don't know how they retain some of these names once the contracts come back up. Devonta, once his rookie contract expires. If they don't give him the weapons around him, is Jalen Hurts. I mean, his entire career, he's been successful. And I don't want to say the guy's been riding on coattails, because he's been the leader of every single team he's been on. But every single team he's been on that has had this great success has come with weapons surrounding him.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, he obviously shows that he has the capabilities, even if there aren't a ton of weapons. But I think, to your point, how he's able to somehow, I don't know whether that's trading the right people in the offseason or drafting the right people or just cutting the right contracts. He seemingly finds a way again and again and again to get the guys and keep the guys that he needs to keep. And I think whether that's a Smith or, any of our young players, especially one like Smith that's so close to Hurts, I think Howie finds a way and will find a way. It's going to be tough, though. You're right. And we're going to have to make sacrifices. I mean, we saw that this year with C.J. Gardner-Johnson before he left. So there were all those rumors that he'd leave. We probably actually could have kept him. Then the Eagles actually moved on, and it was too late. That was actually probably also while they were talking to Jalen, too, on his extension, on top of bringing back Slay when they thought he was leaving. So there's always a lot of moving parts. And I think that's how it's going to consistently be in this era with Hurts. If they really want to try to give him the top-tier talent year and year again, it's never always going to be the same top-tier talent, because that's just impossible. People move on, contracts move around. But I think Howie has shown he is capable. As long as a guy like Hurts is here, he will find ways to try to get the best talent at each position, even if that isn't for this long-term or young player. It could be a 1 or 2 year deal with someone who is just a stopgap, but could really help the team in that sense. So
yeah. So
I guess someone like Slay right now, but
with the point of him now getting this money and, putting the fact aside that Howie is indeed a cap genius, I really think the move with our pick is to go Bijan Robinson. And I say that because
he might be. I mean, all the talk around him, I feel like he might be gone, even though nobody loves running backs.
Who's
I don't know.
gonna pick
Maybe
him,
you're right.
In the Falcons, maybe.
There aren't a ton of teams.
They
that
weren't
would
very
take
happy
him.
with
there's,
Tyler
There's
Algier.
not a ton of teams that would take him. You're right.
Yeah. So the reason why I say number 10 for Bijan is if you're going to have Jalen locked in with this contract, if you can get a legitimate offensive weapon on the, rookie deal, why not give him that rookie deal offensive weapon? Then he'll have AJ, Devonta, Goddard, and Bijan. Where are you leaning for that number 10 pick? Or Bijan or Bijan? I just read it.
I think it's Bijan. I think it's Bijan.
Like the mustard?
We could be called out either way. In my eyes, I know that everyone's talking about Derrick Henry and how he could possibly even find a way to finagle that. In my eyes, and I know Howie doesn't love running backs, but if you can get a guy like Bijan, I think that's kind of a no-brainer just because it evens out the offense a little bit. You got rid of Sanders. You don't have to trade for a guy like Henry. You don't need something that's a big contract. You could go with a little bit of a lower-end contract, have them baked in, have them develop with the offense. I think that's just ideal. They never just go with one running back anyway. Imagine if the Eagles got Derrick Henry. It'd probably be, I don't know, at least a little bit of drama just because Derrick Henry expects to be a number one workhorse. And I know he's a little bit older, but still the Eagles have always been a 2 to 3 back offense. And I just don't see that with, a guy like Derrick Henry. So bringing in a guy like Bijan, a rookie, having a couple complimentary guys, whether that's them keeping Gainwell or Boston Scott or however they go here, I think having a rookie like Bijan is probably the most idealistic. But I could see them waiting till the second to third round and Howie just doing what he does and getting that either offensive or defensive line, because it seems to be that's just his favorite round one pick every single time, no matter what.
I'm excited to see where they go. So it's Thursday night, right?
Yeah. No, it's soon.
Just around the corner.
Gets here quick.
You know what else is?
Gets here so quick.
Friday night. I know you're looking forward to this. The WWE draft.
Yes.
SmackDown, and then finishes up on Monday. I'll be watching that one.
That's
as well.
Crazy. Yeah, no, that's all over the place.
So hold on. Just help me out real quick. I'm going to figure out what I'm doing Friday night. Is Thursday round 1 and 2? So I value the WWE draft more than I value round 3. But if it's a second round on Friday night, I'm going to be watching the NFL draft.
I think Thursday is night 1, correct? Friday is round 2. Saturday is the rest.
Okay.
I think Saturday is 3 through 7. Is that what that is? 7 rounds fully. But
yeah, I don't know if it's 4 through 7 or 3 through 7. That's what I was. Or is it 2 and 3 on Friday night? Maybe it's
no.
1
You're
on
right.
Thursday?
I think you're right. It's 2 and 3. It is 2 and 3. They changed that. So it is. I mean, they give you a little bit of it, but Monday is so long. It is so long.
Yeah.
It is like daunting. It takes forever. You think you're gonna sit there, but I guess the anticipation is what everyone's there for. I guess so.
Yeah. Rodeo writes in, that's Rick. You know Rick. Says this new running back from down there in Texas has a new mustard called Bijan Mustard. And Dez, what a jerk, writes, and remember when the Eagles lost in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we don't need you.
What are you?
We don't need you.
Get
Yeah,
out of
he
here.
likes the Cowboys and the Packers.
No, he doesn't. Does he really?
The Cowboys.
Oh,
He's more of a Packers fan.
How are you
So, haha,
Cowboys and a
Aaron
Pack-
Rodgers left you.
Des, how are you
producer
both a
Des.
Cowboys and a Packers fan?
It's baffling.
Did you just
It's
like
baffling.
spin a wheel and say
We bring it up
just
as much as we can.
writes go Packers?
He's still
Is
here.
he a
that
Yankees
weasel.
fan too?
He likes the Phillies, I think, at least. He still likes
Okay.
the Phillies.
Yeah.
We'll give him that.
All right. Well, I think we better wrap things up because we've been way over our time that they allotted for us. Not that it really matters since we're kind of on YouTube. doing our own thing.
But yeah,
Pirate
so
Radio. On
this
the
has
other
been
side.
the other side with Dan and DiRenzo. We're going to be here 1 to 2 times a week with you guys, kind of whenever we can. We'll also podcast this. We'll be on YouTube as much as possible. We'll try to engage with the chat as much as possible. Talk about politics, talk about entertainment. We'll get into streaming. We'll get into sports.
Talk about what you want to talk about. If you
Yeah.
want to drop a comment,
Yeah.
give us a topic, we'll be happy to give it a chat.
Yeah, so we'll be all over the place doing this, but we really we're excited to keep doing it. Thank you guys for subscribing to our YouTube and watching us at 1210 WPHT. It's been awesome rolling it out and the response we've gotten. So thank you guys. Subscribe here. Follow us on the other side. It'll shortly be up on our website as well as a podcast. We'll keep you posted on that. But thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys around the corner. Thanks so much.